The two biggest hurdles I see for even fairly organized people are tasks and notes. In other words, it's keeping up with the things they have to do and the pieces of information that will be valuable later. That's what we're talking about today. Hi, this is Frank Buck, and this is the place to be if you want to get organized and make it look easy. In this episode, you'll hear excerpts from a podcast episode. I was a guest of Robbie Burns on the Music Ed Tech Talk podcast. Many of you know my background is in music education. Following graduation from college, I was a junior high and middle school band director for 12 years. Then I moved into school administration. The original episode is a little over an hour in length. In the body of the blog post, I have a link to that episode. I condensed it down to just my responses. The intended audience is the school band director. However, I think you'll find the concepts applicable to anyone. There's the musical aspect of it, but then there's also the running your program, and there's so many balls to keep in the air. So organization, being a good manager of your time, just makes all the difference in the world. You can be the best musician in the world, but if you board the buses and you've taken up all the music and you put it in that nice crate, and now the crate is sitting in the band room as the buses pull out to go to contest. There's something not so good about that. And I've actually seen that kind of stuff happen. Tasks and notes, they do go together, and I think they're the two from a true productivity suite that are the least understood. I mean, calendars, we've been using calendars for centuries, and most people who want to have a handle on digital calendars do. They're good with Google Calendar, and certainly contacts. Most everyone has put aside the pencil and paper address books. When it comes to contacts, I think we're there. When it comes to calendar, we're sort of there. When it comes to tasks and notes, most people really are going, teach me. For most people, what they know is they don't know nearly enough. When I ask people, how many of you keep your tasks digital? And whereas every hand in the room went up when I asked that about contacts, and at least half the hands go up when I ask how many keep a digital calendar, a half to 3/4 or more. When you say, how many keep your tasks digital? A smattering of hands. And when you start asking, what do you use exactly? Most people, when you peel back that onion, it's, I keep the test, I put it on my digital calendar because I just don't have another place to put it. Or it's, I put it on that little yellow legal pad looking thing on my iPhone, which is fine for the grocery list for this afternoon, but it's a terrible thing for the thing that you have to do 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now, 2 years from now. I've got things on my task list that are not going to happen for several years, like getting my driver's license renewed, every 4 years. And nobody's going to send me a card in the mail saying, hey, Frank, this month you got to get your driver's license renewed. That's on me. And I don't want to walk around going, when does my driver's license, and pulling it out and looking on the back of it to see if somehow I've missed something. I don't want to be keeping up with all that little stuff in my head and waking up in the middle of the night trying to remember what I forgot. Let me think about it one time, throw it in the system, and have the confidence that that system is going to spit it back to me at the right time so that I can be 100% focused on what I'm doing right now instead of having all that other stuff. The system's handling everything else. When people say, well, let me sit down, I'm going to make a list of what I need to do today, and they start with a blank piece of paper or a blank screen, I have not experienced that phenomenon, and I can't tell you how many decades, because things that I'm putting on the list are things I'm thinking about now that need to be done sometime in the future. So when I interact with my list later on this evening, as I look at my list, I'm not creating a list from scratch for tomorrow. I'm looking at what's already there and going, how do I want to arrange this? What do I want to postpone a few days? What had I originally scheduled for 2 weeks out that maybe I want to drag back into the present? How do I want to order these things so that when I get up in the morning, it's just bam, 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 right through the plan. As soon as something hits your radar, that it goes in the system. Then it's not, I can remember that. Nothing stays in your head. As a high school senior, Up until that point, I was like every other kid. I'm keeping up with things in my head. I'm jotting things down on a piece of notebook paper that gets folded up and stuck in the middle of a textbook somewhere. I've got things all over everywhere. Senior year, where you've got scholarship auditions and where am I going to school next year, it just became more complex. I kind of hit the brick wall at that point and realized I need something where it's all going in one place. So mine was index cards. I had an index card for every day. So my job in the morning was take the index card for that day that already had written on the front of it any appointments and to-dos and stick it in my pocket. One job. Take the card, stick it in my pocket, head off to school, sort of keep that card front and center during the day. And then anything that happened during the day, I wrote on the back of the card. So any new thing is all getting trapped in the same place. Now, I don't use index cards today. I use, my phone, and it's usually my voice into the phone. But it's the idea of when something first appears that you throw it in the system. Later in the day, look at everything you've thrown in that system. And what I do is everything gets a date. Everything gets a due date, which is my own personal due date. It's not the drop dead deadline for somebody else. But it gives me a point in time when that thing is going to happen. So every task gets a due date, and every task gets a priority that for me doesn't necessarily mean the most important, the least important, but it gives me a spot in the day. Morning, afternoon, evening, and then I have what I call my Fab Five, the 5 most important things. So by sorting things by date, and within the date, by priority, I have, here's my Fab Five, and then here's my little plan for the morning, the afternoon, the evening, and just, execute the plan. So that's a large part of my system right there. One thing that separates what I teach from most of the other systems out there is a real heavy reliance on repeating tasks. And I think that comes from my background in education. First time you do a concert, all of the little things that go into preparing for that concert, everything from reserving the facility, having tickets printed, securing somebody to pass out the programs at the door. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on and on and on. But the good news is the next time you do a concert, it's those same things. So how can you take those things the first time they appear and ask yourself, this is not do it one time and check it off. This is, I'm going to be doing this little task next October the 15th as well. And being able to make that a little repeating task. And of course, when you have a digital system, it's very, very simple to do. After a year of teaching, you're thanking yourself, that second year, and here are all these tasks that are now showing up that were repeating tasks that you put on there last year, and you're thanking your past self for all of the things you're not having to rethink all the time. You have to have some way to know, what do I need to do today? What do I not need to do today? There's some people when they get into, a task manager, and when there are no tasks in there, well, it's easy. You start putting tasks in there. When there are only 3 tasks, well, this is so easy. But if you really and truly put everything that you have to do in there, it adds up very quickly. And the repeating task, if somebody doesn't have at least 100 repeating tasks, they have not identified the repeating task. And, the people that are listening to this right now, I just challenge you to take 30 seconds to list the repeating tasks that you just have in your life. It's everything from changing the air filter every month. Do you have a dog? Well, you got to give that dog his heartworm pill once a month. Writing the check to the church for your monthly pledge. There's so many things where you're not going to get some kind of external reminder. Most of those things you don't have to do today, but give it some kind of structure of these are the things I'd like to see today, tomorrow, the next day, a month from now, 6 months from now. We get busy and we forget, and then we beat ourselves up about how dumb we are. We don't need to be smarter. We just need a better system. And let the system handle some of these things. And it's got to be easy. The moment that you put that task in the system, you earn the right to forget about it. See, when people say, oh, I'm forgetful, I'm going, well, make that irrelevant. Let your system do the remembering for you. In my workshops, I'll say, having the due dates, it's like, when do you want to see this again? Give it that due date. But then what if you somehow need to see it before then? And that's where search comes in, which is one of the things that makes a digital tool so great. With your paper planner, you got things that are date-based, but then how do you find, it's like, I know I wrote that task down. Where is it? What date did I put? A good example, let's say you've got somebody that you work with and you've got some things on your list related to that person. Let's call him Joe. So I think it's something I need to talk to Joe about. So if you throw on your list, Joe and whatever it is, and then you throw on your list something else about Joe and give it whatever due date. All right, so let's say Joe comes walking in the door unexpectedly. Wouldn't it be good if you could put your hands on a list of everything you need to talk to Joe about? They just search for Joe, and there it is. There's everything about Joe there. Or, you're sitting in the airport. Your flight's been delayed. You want to be productive, and all you got your phone. You could make some phone calls if you knew what they were. Well, if every time you threw something on your list that was a phone call, if you included the word call somewhere in the task, search for the word call, and there they are for you. So I'm using that kind of thing all the time. My app of choice is Evernote. I've had an account since 2009, and for several years, I really didn't understand what I had there. So after I left Outlook, Evernote sort of became the replacement for the Outlook notes. But then once those notes were in Evernote, it just expanded so much from there. The ability to put things in with your voice, the ability to take a photograph and an audio note and type notes, and it all be part of the same note. But what I'm looking for in a note-taking app is, first of all, to have an inbox, so that during the day I can throw different things at it and not worry about, this is a huge part of it, separating, trapping things, whether it's a task or whether it's a note, and then the organizing later. That I can throw things at Evernote and then later in the day in that Evernote inbox, look at it and go, what does this mean to me? I can see something in a store and go, ooh, that would be a great gift for my wife. Pull out Evernote, take a quick picture. And now I don't have to stand right there, right then and go, all right, what do I need to title this note? What notebook do I need to put this in? What do I need to put over on my task list? No, I can just throw the phone back in my pocket. That night, I can look at whatever's come in. I'm looking at that picture going, oh yeah, I was in the so-and-so store to door, and the reason I took that picture was I think that's going to be a great gift. Let me now look on Amazon and see if I can find it there and what the price is and so forth and so on. And so then that's going to now either wind up on my task list or it gets put in a particular notebook in Evernote called Gift Ideas for the Future. Whether it's your task list or your notes, there has to be that place for things you've just thrown in there that on a pretty much a daily basis you're looking at going, how do I now need to organize this? Then I think next there needs to be some kind of multi-level organization. Like with Evernote, you have the note. Think of it like a note card. And then you can then put notes into a notebook and then notebooks into stacks. I think of stacks as sort of like a bookcase, like you got a bunch of notebooks. Maybe this bookcase is all of my notebooks from college, and this bookcase over here, these are my notebooks about band, in my professional life. So that would be like what stacks are in Evernote. So I think if you just have just a whole bunch of notes, it'd be like a whole bunch of index cards that aren't organized in any type of fashion. Gosh, the ability to search, and Evernote is so great. With your traditional filing system, it's knowing what drawer did I put that in, and inside that drawer, which file folder did it go in, and how was it named, and so forth. With Evernote, you're just thinking, gosh, that conversation I had with, what was the guy's name? Well, I remember his first name and I remember his last name started with a B. So I can say, Joe, and then the letter B and an asterisk for the wild card. And then any other little thing I might have, gosh, we were in Arizona. Let me put Arizona in there. Search for that and it's going to bring it up for you. Even if you have no idea where you put it, it's so easy to search and find the things that you want in there. So I think that's important, having a real good search. And then last, that every note has its own link, because here's where the task and the notes can really work together. A lot of times you've got a task, and when you sit down to do that task, there's some related information. So if that related information is in a note over in Evernote, and that note has a link, I can copy that link, make it part of the task. When I sit down to do the task, there's the link, click, and there's the supporting material now that I need to be able to do that task. I've gotten to where now when I do workshops, I hand out, it's digital and it's in Evernote. Just to give you, just a quick thank you very much Evernote story. I'm sitting in my hotel room looking over at the handout, right before I'm going to go and present, and I see the mother of all typos in the title of the handout. Now, under normal circumstances, if this had been a PDF, this would have been boot my computer, bring up the Word document, fix the mistake, save it again as the PDF, tell it, yes, I do want to overwrite this one over the old one, hope I've got a good internet connection, upload the new PDF to the file section of my website, tell it that, yes, I want the new one to overwrite the old one. And with Evernote, I'm sitting there looking at the typo on my phone. I touch the error and fix it on my phone, and it's saved and the same link. So I go in to do the workshop and I just write on the board, here's the little shortened link. Everybody goes to that link and there's the handout. And I tell them that, hey, just hang on to that link. And if I improve that handout, you go to that link and you're getting the latest, greatest version. And when this whole COVID thing started and people were looking for resources, I had been sort of putting together some of the better flute resources I had in Evernote. And I thought, well, look, this is great for me to have. Let me let the whole world have it. So I created a link and just made it a little shortened link. So if you go to, I think it's bit.ly/flute2020, all in lowercase, then here's all this wonderful flute stuff for people who now are sitting at home, who now have all the time in the world to practice at home if they got good stuff to practice from. And as something else comes along, I've been improving that little document and not worrying about telling people, oh, well, let's let this replace this one. No, whoever goes to that same link is getting the latest, greatest version of it. So, it's just, it's easy, and it's easy enough I'll use. And to me, that's the whole thing. It's got to be easy or people are not going to use it. Evernote is reference. It's like the big metal filing cabinet that's sitting over there in the corner, that when you want that information, it's there and it's organized. Now, what's going to be the trigger that's going to send you over to the filing cabinet? Well, that's your task manager. This would be for someone who is either using Evernote or OneNote, either one of those two, Evernote or OneNote, and you're using a digital task manager. This thing is a stroke of genius. All right, let's take you back to, say, 1997, 1998, when I'm using that day timer. So you got your two facing pages for every day. Left-hand page, there are my appointments and then my to-dos. And then there's that blank right-hand page for anything that comes up during the day. Notes from phone calls, notes from meetings. So let's say I go into a meeting. Well, I'm taking notes on that right-hand page. Well, some of that is just reference information, but there are also going to be some to-dos. There are probably going to be some calendar events that come out of that. But instead of flipping all back and forth through my paper planner, putting things on calendar pages and putting to-dos on certain dates, I'm just writing it all down on that right-hand page. And then later in the day, my job is to look at what I've written and make decisions about what it means to me. I'm then taking those notes and putting those where they belong. Let's say I'm in a meeting with Joe. And one of the things we say is, let's touch base about this that we've talked about in 2 weeks. Well, I'm going to write on that right-hand page, follow up with Joe in 2 weeks, and put a little checkbox in front of it to kind of show me that's a to-do. Well, later in the day, I'm going to look at that and go, 2 weeks follow up with Joe. Well, at that point, I flip ahead in my planner and I write down 2 weeks from now, follow up with Joe. And then in parentheses, I would put the date that we had talked. So now it's 2 weeks from now. I see follow up with Joe on my list for that day. I see that little notation for the day we talked. I'm now looking back at the notes I took 2 weeks ago. So here's what Task Clone does. It gives me that very same thing. I'm in a meeting. I want to take notes digitally. I just create a new note. I'm taking all the notes during that meeting. There's some to-dos that come out of it. I just put a little checkbox in front of anything that's a to-do. And then before I close that note, I tag it Task Clone. Task Clone harvests any of the to-dos and anything that was a calendar event, also that had a little checkbox. It puts it on my calendar if it's an event. It puts it on my task list if it's a to-do. And in the notes section of that task, it puts a link back to the Evernote note. So now it's 2 weeks from now. In Remember the Milk, I see a task that says follow up with Joe. There's the link. I click it, and it has just brought up that whole set of notes from 2 weeks ago. If you're using either Evernote or OneNote, and you're using a digital task manager, those two things, you got to get this. If you like what you're hearing here, folks, just go over to my website, frankbuck.org, and you'll see a little place to sign up for my email list right there on the homepage. And you're going to get right off the bat 2 free gifts. The first one's going to get your desk clean. Basically, the first chapter of my book, which talks about organizing the paper, using the tickler file, but it'll get your desk clean. The second gift that you get several days later is an ebook that I put together on Remember the Milk. So it's how to get it, the one-time setting, sort of the getting up and running with Remember the Milk. It talks about the strategy I use, the things that you heard me say about giving everything a due date, giving everything a priority, that sort of thing. And then I'm in your inbox once a week telling you what I have added to my website that week. I generally do a blog post, podcast, YouTube combination once a week. So that'll keep you up to date on that sort of thing. And then I also add several tips and tricks, things that I've read during the week, or I think things that you need to know. So come over to frankbuck.org and get on the list. Yeah, things are so open-ended. How much could you do? And I think we've got to set boundaries. I used to blog like every other day. Of course, that was back in the day where basically you put text and that was it. And then after a while it was, you need to add a picture. And then, you need to put a title on the picture. And then, on and on and on. And so now I've come to the conclusion I can do one good piece of content a week. So I'll write one good blog post and also do a YouTube video where we demonstrate whatever it was that we're talking about and make an audio version of it. And it also becomes a newspaper column. I've already got the text written for the blog post, so it's also the text with some little modifications for the newspaper column. And then, Robbie, as you were talking about, those who might go and now follow me on Instagram or Twitter, what you're going to see is really a reference back to that blog post. So it's one piece of content, and then we're repurposing it in some shape, form, or fashion on all these other platforms so that everything points back to that blog that's on the website. And I can do that and have a life. But that's where I draw the line. The one good piece of content. Yeah, think about all the times when you're trying to schedule a meeting with somebody else and you're doing it by email or you're having to leave voicemail messages. So it's like, we need to get together. How's Friday at 9 for you? And they message you back, no, that's not good. How about Monday at 10? And you message them back, no, Monday's not good. How's Tuesday at 3? And then finally you send them the heavy artillery. And you leave them this message. I've got Thursday at 9, 10, 1, and 3, and Friday at this time and that time. And then 3 days later, when they finally get back with you, the one time they've chosen is the one time that's now been gobbled up by something else. It's like email battleship. You're both trying to hit a calendar that you can't see. And so what Meetingbird does, I can email somebody and say, let's get together. I click a button that says Meetingbird. My calendar comes up. I drag and highlight big blocks of time that I'm available and would like to offer up to the other person. Tell it how long I want the meeting to be. I click, and these little buttons are actually inserted into the email with all these dates and times. So the other person, when they get the email, all they do is they click on a time that's available for them. It goes on my calendar for me. It emails me that it's happened. I think it also goes on their calendar as well. And if something's happened and that particular time has already been gobbled up by something else before they ever get to the email, it'll tell them automatically. So It has access. It's reading my Google Calendar, so it always knows whether I'm free or not. And this thing's free. Over on my blog, I did a couple of posts on Meetingbird. So if people just go over to frankbuck.org, and where you have the little search magnifying glass at the top, if you just click on that and type in Meetingbird, it'll pull up those posts for you. No, I'm good because, Robbie, and for all the people who are listening to us, this is totally unrehearsed. We collaborated through a share. Of course, another good thing about using Evernote. One of us just created a note in Evernote, shared it with the other one, so we were both able to type some things. So we had just sort of a brief outline, but really all we're doing is we're really going off the cuff from our own knowledge and just having a good old conversation that other people are able to eavesdrop over. So yeah, I'm good within the next couple of weeks. I'd be good for tomorrow, for that matter, because there's the nice thing about there's no test to study for. There's no real preparation. It's going off of the things that we're doing on a daily basis and just sharing it with other people, because that is so much fun. I think that's probably why both of us got into education to start with, that we felt like we had a gift to share with other people and we were glad to do it. And that's something that never goes away.
And those are my thoughts on digital tasks and digital notes. Thanks for stopping by. And if you find this content helpful, here's how you can make sure you never miss a thing. In the text of the blog post, you'll see a link where you can join the email list. This has been Frank Buck, helping you get organized and make it look easy.